Imagine this. You find a crisp $100 bill on the sidewalk. For a second, your heart does a tiny flip, small thrill, small victory. Now imagine you get a bonus, the same rush, only stretched out. A year later you look back and can't quite remember how that bonus changed your daily happiness. Why did the found $100 excite you more than the permanent raise? Why do some people win the lottery and spiral into chaos, while others quietly lock it away and keep living as before? If money is a simple medium of exchange, why is our relationship with it so wildly complicated? Welcome. Let's sit down and talk like friends about money, not lecture style, not a finance class, but the human side, the ideas, the mistakes, the feelings, and yes, the fixes. We'll pull in ideas from psychologists and behavioral economists, riff on real-world cases, and leave with a set of practical, fleshed-out ways to change the way we think about money. Along the way, you'll see familiar terms: loss aversion, anchoring, mental accounting, show up like guests at a dinner party. No jargon-only talk. Think of this as a long, friendly chat that actually teaches you something useful. A few voices to keep in mind. I'll borrow two short, sharp, quotable ideas to guide us. Morgan Housel put it plainly: doing well with money has little to do with how smart you are, and a lot to do with how you behave. That flips the script. Money isn't only about IQ or spreadsheets. It's about patterns of behavior. And Daniel Kahneman reminds us of a psychological quirk. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is, while you are thinking about it. Translation: when money is front and center in your thoughts, you exaggerate its importance, and that skews decisions. If you like labels, behavior researchers such as Dan Ariely and Richard Thaler have shown again and again that people are not perfectly rational calculators. We are predictably biased, and those predictable quirks are where the psychology of money lives. Why money feels like more than money. Money wears more faces than you'd expect. It's a tool, yes, but also a scoreboard, a story, and a self-image. Think about what your first memory of money was. Maybe it was getting an allowance, being told we can't afford that, a parent insisting you save, or a sibling spending everything. Those early experiences act like lenses through which we interpret later financial events. Money as emotion. Money triggers identity and emotion. A raise can feel like validation. Debt can feel like shame. Those feelings push behavior avoidance, denial, overspending, or obsessive tracking. Money as social signal. We use money to show status or belong. Keeping up with the Joneses is not just a cliché. Social comparison pushes people to overextend financially to appear successful. Money as control. For many, managing money is one of the few domains where they can exert measurable control. In chaotic lives, budgets and paying bills can feel stabilizing. So a single dollar rarely stands alone. It sits inside a network of meaning. That's why the same amount of money can make different people very different decisions. Fear and risk aversion. Fear can be paralyzing. After a market drop, anxiety might lead an investor to sell at the bottom and miss the rebound. Conversely, fear of missing out, FOMO, can push people into speculative investments. Pride and identity. People often make purchases to reinforce identity. I'm the kind of person who buys organic, or I don't buy cheap clothes. Those purchases are partly emotional statements. Shame and secrecy. Shame around debt or lack of financial literacy leads to secrecy. People avoid getting help, hide bills, or take out high-cost loans, rather than talk openly. Hope and optimism bias. We're wired to be optimistic. Optimism helps with motivation, but also leads to underestimating risk. For example, assuming your business will succeed when evidence suggests otherwise. Emotional spillover. A bad day at work can lead to impulse shopping. A breakup can trigger risky spending. Emotional states act like an invisible tax on your judgment. Lottery winners and sudden wealth. There are many publicized examples of lottery winners who ruined their lives. Why? Sudden wealth bypasses the gradual behavior change that usually comes with accumulating wealth. It also floods relationships with new social expectations, requests for loans, pressure to maintain a lifestyle, and in some cases, predatory advisors. When someone goes from scarcity to abundance overnight, Their behavioral toolkit is unprepared. The 2008 financial crisis, herd behavior, overconfidence, and misaligned incentives combined. Many professionals believed house prices would rise indefinitely. Mortgage underwriting standards loosened. Products were complex and opaque. Emotions and incentives, not only cold math, drove decisions. The aftermath taught us that markets reflect humans, not purely rational calculators. Consumer debt and payday loans. People in financial stress often resort to high-cost credit because present needs override future costs. Variable schedules, emergency medical bills, and social pressure can create short-term choices with long-term consequences. Gambling and behavioral traps. Gambling addiction illustrates several biases: overconfidence, illusion of control, chasing losses, a form of sunk cost fallacy, and reward scheduling that mimics slot machine dopamine patterns. Businesses design systems to exploit known human tendencies. Entrepreneurship and optimism. Founders often underestimate timelines and overestimate revenue. That optimism drives startups. It's also why many fail. The psychology that fuels innovation can also blind people to risk. Development, family stories, and culture. How money becomes personal where you came from matters. Family attitudes toward money, scarcity messages. We can't afford that refrain. Or a culture of conspicuous consumption build scripts that influence adult behavior. Childhood lessons. Children who get allowances and learn to allocate money early often show better financial habits later. But even the message matters. An allowance tied strictly to chores sends a different signal than one tied to freedom and responsibility. Cultural variations. Different societies emphasize saving, communal support, or status through material goods. The norms you grew up with shape what responsible looks like. Trauma and scarcity. Experiencing scarcity, for example. Growing up in poverty affects cognitive bandwidth. Scarcity taxes attention and reduces capacity for long-term planning, making short-term trade-offs feel necessary and rational. Practical frameworks. There are several ways to address it. Here's a key sentence. There are several ways to address the psychological traps around money. Let's outline them, and for each one, I'll give a fleshed-out example, so it's not just a list. 1. Design your environment choice architecture. A lot of behavioral problems aren't about willpower, they're about environment. If you want to save, make saving automatic. If you want to spend less online, remove saved payment methods. Example in detail. Automate 10% of your paycheck to go to savings on payday. Set up an automatic transfer that occurs before you see the money in your checking account. That removes the mental decision each month and leverages inertia. Over time, that 10% compounds and becomes invisible spending pain because you never had to decide. 2. Use commitment devices. Commitment devices limit future bad choices in advance. They're contracts with your future self. Example in detail. If your problem is impulse eating out, sign up for a meal delivery plan that requires prepayment weekly. Or open a retirement account with penalties for early withdrawal, not just because of penalties, but because they force you to take the commitment seriously. Another example. Give a friend control to enforce a savings rule. A small accountability mechanism that costs you socially if you fail. 3. Rename and reframe money mental. Accounting wisely applied. Instead of letting mental accounting work against you, use it to your advantage by labeling funds for specific goals. Example in detail. Create buckets for savings, emergency fund, vacation, and big purchase. Use separate accounts or sub-accounts, even small apps, envelopes. When you mentally associate one account with emergency, you'll think twice before spending it on non-emergencies. However, keep overall asset allocation in mind. Buckets are great for behavior, but keep them within a rational planning framework. 4. Reduce friction for good habits. Increase friction for bad ones. Make the good action easy and the bad action harder. Example in detail. Want to invest regularly? Use an app that buys fractional shares automatically with your paycheck. Want to stop impulse online shopping? Remove card details from stores, unsubscribe from marketing emails, and set a 48-hour rule before purchases over a threshold. 5. Rewire through small experiments. Tiny habits. Big changes are hard. Tiny experiments let you test new behaviors with low psychological costs. Example in detail. Try a 30-day no-spend weekend once a month. Or start with 1 week of logging every expense. No judgment. Small wins build identity shifts. I am someone who tracks my money. 6. Cultivate emotional literacy around money. Talk about feelings. Shame and secrecy are corrosive. Example in detail. Have a monthly money check-in with a partner or trusted friend where the goal is curiosity, not judgment. Use phrases like, I felt anxious when I saw the credit card bill, rather than you're irresponsible. Normalize small confessions. Everyone has money stories. 7. Use defaults and nudge-friendly settings. Defaults are powerful. Choose them intentionally. Example in detail. For workplace retirement plans, opt into the default contribution and increase rate by 1% yearly. If your workplace allows auto-escalation, use it. Small percentage increases feel invisible but compound enormously. 8. Learn the narratives, train metacognition. Recognize the stories you tell yourself. I deserve this, or I'll pay it off later. Naming the narrative reduces its power. Example in detail. Before a big purchase, ask, what story am I telling myself to justify this? Write it down. Is it a fear, an identity play, or a rational need? That pause creates space. A step-by-step routine to reprogram money, behavior practical playbook. Okay, here's a concrete routine you can actually use this week. No fluff. Week 0. Baseline track. For 7 days, write down every expense. No judgment. Use a simple notes app. Reflect. At the end of the week, categorize expenses, needs, wants, debt, savings. Week 1. Quick fixes. Automate. Set up automatic transfers for at least 5 to 10% of income to savings investments. Remove. Delete one saved payment method from a habitual online store. Set up a 48-hour waiting rule for non-essential purchases. Over a threshold, for example, $30. Week 2. Identity shift. Tiny habit. Add a small ritual each payday. Open the transfer screen. Move the predetermined amount to savings. Celebrate quietly. Habit reinforcement matters. Reframe. Rename your savings accounts to values-based names, Future Freedom, Sabbatical Fund, to strengthen identity linkage. Week 3. Commitment device. Set a commitment. Choose a goal, paying down a credit card by X amount, or building a 3-month emergency fund. Announce it to one trusted person, and ask them to check in monthly. Week 4. Emotional work. Conversation. Have a non-judgmental money talk with a partner or friend using a script. I'd like to share where I'm at with money and hear yours. No advice unless asked. The goal is psychological safety. Month 2 and beyond, iterate. Increase savings rate by 1% quarterly. Do one small experiment every month. No spend weekend, meal prep challenge, side hustle test. Review progress quarterly, not daily. Compound works quietly. Give it time. On advice, whom to trust, and whom to beware, the financial advice market is full of both brilliant help and predatory noise. A few principles. Prefer fiduciaries, advisors who are legally required to prioritize your interests. If someone makes money by selling you a product, treat their advice with healthy skepticism. Beware of slick narratives. If it sounds too simple, get rich quick. It probably is. Complex markets reward consistent, boring behavior more than spectacular, risky bets. Look for humility. The best advisors acknowledge uncertainty and tailor advice to your life, not an idealized investor. Money conversations. How to say the hard things. Money fights are often communication fights wearing financial clothes. Here's a gentle script for the tricky talk with a partner. Opening line. Can we set aside 30 minutes to talk about money? I want to share where I'm at and hear about you. And the goal is to make a plan together. During the talk, use I statements. Ask open questions. What worries you about money? Normalize silence. Avoid immediate solutions. First, listen. If debt is a source of shame, move slow. I have some debt. I'd like us to talk about how we handle it together. Avoid blame. Consider a neutral third party to mediate. The ethics of financial design. It's worth noting that many businesses design products to exploit our biases. Credit card companies use marketing that encourages spending. Apps use reward mechanics to increase engagement, and some advisors prioritize commissionable products. Awareness reduces vulnerability. When possible, choose companies and products that align incentives with your well-being. The surprising role of humility and gratitude. One psychological trick that often gets overlooked: gratitude reduces hedonic adaptation. People who regularly practice gratitude, noting what they appreciate, get more joy from smaller things and are less likely to chase ever larger material purchases. Humility, too, helps. Accepting that you might be biased leads to better structures, automation, advisors, defaults. Humility turns psychology into design. A few myths. Debunked myth: you must be a math genius to succeed with money. Reality: as Morgan Housel said, behavior beats intelligence. Good habits, discipline, and sound structures matter more than raw IQ. Myth: debt always means failure. Reality: debt is a tool. Good debt, like a mortgage for an appreciating asset or student loans for increased earning potential, can be strategic. Bad debt, high interest, consumer debt, is usually harmful. Myth: rich people are happier. Reality: up to a point, money removes constraints and improves well-being. But beyond basic security, more money gives diminishing returns on daily happiness. Money buys options and reduces stress, but it doesn't guarantee meaning. Final thoughts: wealth, values, and the life you actually want. This is the quiet part. Money is not the destination. It's the roadmap we use to get to the life we value. If you want freedom, generosity, or time, build systems that prioritize those outcomes. If you want status and image, be honest. That's a weather system we can design for, but it's costly. The best financial choices are not only mathematically sound, but aligned with your values and psychology. A quick checklist for alignment. Do your spending choices reflect what you say you value? If not, small experiments can reveal where the mismatch lies. Are your savings and investments automated? Automation is the unsung hero of good behavior. Do you have a small habit for learning about money? Reading 10 pages a week compounds mentally as well. Are you talking about money with at least one trusted person? Shame falls away in conversation. Have you built a small system to manage emotions around money? Pause rules, commitment devices, or therapy can help. The long game. Let's end where we began. Money is a human story more than a math problem. The psychology of money explains why the same choices produce different outcomes depending on context, identity, and emotion. The good news: human behavior is malleable. There are several ways to address our money problems: thoughtful design of our environment, small repeated actions, social supports, and the humility to build systems that protect us from our worst impulses. If you remember one thing, remember this Morgan Housel-like spirit. Your financial future is less about brilliant one-time moves, and more about the boring, repeatable patterns you choose to run every day. Small choices plus consistent structure equals surprising outcomes.